Imagine if you came up with a podcast idea that ticked every box. It was on a topic that you could talk about in your sleep. It was with a bunch of mates you loved hanging out with, and it had the potential to replace your current income. Well, that's exactly what sisters Lucy and Felicity Race have done with their podcast called The Outer Sanctum. Let's go and find out how they've done it. Hey, before we immerse ourselves in episode 383 of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, the marketing gold is made possible thanks to 52ways.biz and Dragon speech recognition software. You need Dragon. Why? Because it converts whatever you say into text. Given we speak 3 times faster than we write, Dragon has to be the productivity hack of the century. You download the software, start talking, and your words appear on your screen, which means you can create documents, blog posts, emails, reports, and spreadsheets in a third the time. You can get an exclusive listener 35% off at getdragon.com.au. And we're also made possible thanks to Dale Beaumont's 52 Ways live event. You know, one character trait that links all successful business owners is that they never, ever stop learning. That's why I'd love to see you attend this one very full day where Dale hands you on a platter 52 ways to grow your business. There's still seats available for the November events, plus Australian and New Zealand dates are released for 2018. So you've got no excuses. Head over to 52ways.biz and grab a seat for you and a friend now.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to the Small Business Big Marketing Show. The number one marketing podcast in Australia is ranked by Apple iTunes, which is also available on all Virgin Australia flights, both domestically and internationally. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, but you, so much more importantly, you're a motivated business owner and you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it deserves to be. Big show today. We catch up with 2 sisters whose love of podcasting may soon become a full-time job. I explain how I get more listeners to this show. You'll discover how to ramp up the human side of your business. And we go back into the vault, revisiting a chat I had with Stephen Byron, whose family built and own Australia's most awarded airport. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. If you've ever wondered about starting a podcast yourself and where it could take you and your business, then you're going to love today's guests, who I met recently at ABC Radio's Ozpod conference. Sisters Felicity and Lucy Race are 2 of the 6 hosts of the Outer Sanctum podcast, a show providing a female perspective on Aussie rules football. Now, in actual fact, Felicity and Lucy are the owners of a small dental implant business called ID Health, which is starting to take a little bit of a back seat as the Outer Sanctum podcast grows exponentially in popularity. And that's where the story gets really interesting. You see, we actually started off by talking about their dental business, but it soon became so obvious that they were much happier talking about their podcasting journey. So that's exactly where we went. The Outer Sanctum started off as 6 women, all Hawthorn supporters, go Hawks, talking about Aussie rules on Facebook. Before they knew it, they'd progressed to podcasting, and their show is now part of ABC Radio's national podcasting stable, which is no mean feat. Along the way, they've broken news that created a national uproar and found themselves meeting people they only ever dreamt of meeting. Podcasting's good like that. Now, to give you a sense of what the Outer Sanctum is all about, here's a short grab from the start of a recent episode.
You're listening to the Outer Sanctum podcast.
Here is a moment in time in the history of the AFL.
In from the side, Houghton. She was surrounded by blue jumpers.
Bounced on its point. Wow. The fakes, the gods are with the goal. finals.
Thanks, Craig Willis.
That's my best, Craig Willis. Welcome to the Outer Sanctum, where 6 middle-aged women talking about football is barely enough.
Let's talk about your true love. Because, see, the smiles come out now.
See, can you hear it in our
Yeah, I
voices?
can.
We sound happier already.
The whole room just changed.
We're all bored with dental, aren't we?
But hopefully by the end of this conversation, we can monetise your podcast beyond belief. So feel free to ask me questions as we go.
Beautiful.
Okay? I know I'm the interviewer, but
No, I like
there
it.
might be a two-way street here. So the Outer Sanctum is a show that you, 2 and 4 other women who all barrack for Hawthorn put together when?
So it was the start of last year.
Right.
So
12 months old.
12 months. Oh, no. 2 years old.
2 years
2 years old. So it was the beginning of 2016. And 2 of the girls, we'd all kind of come to meet each other separately. Well, 3 of us are sisters, so we'd known each other for quite some time. But we had all been chatting, and we'd come together via our love of Hawthorn. We'd been chatting on our different devices and ended up going along one day to watch a game together. We thought we should meet in real life and got along really well and continued to have these online discussions every time there was a football game. 2 of the girls put together a book called From the Outer and included some of our funny little chats in that.
Right.
And so when that book was launched, we went out for dinner to celebrate it. And Emma had done a podcasting course and someone said, "We're so funny and we really like talking about football. We should do a podcast." And we started the next week.
Cool. I like the action. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people who go, "We're so funny, we should start a podcast," but sometimes I think maybe they shouldn't start a podcast. But clearly you made each other laugh, so...
We did. And, within a week, someone had bought a Zoom recorder. We lined Sam Lane, a football journalist, up to be our first guest. And
Just like that?
Just like that.
So this is really interesting because there's a whole lot of business owners listening who go, maybe podcasting or video marketing's for me, but I don't know where to start. You have literally gone and said, you know what, someone's done a course,
Yeah.
we can get Sam Lane, who would be a great
Yeah.
guest. Away we go.
I think what sits behind that is the fact that all 6 of us had this big love of football, but we'd also had a common frustration where we'd kind of bemoaned the lack of female voices in the football media and the sports media generally. And we'd all had times where, as much as we love this game of ours, we'd had moments where it had really pushed our relationship, where we'd seen things that we weren't happy about. And we are all fairly passionate about issues as well as sport. And so that made up quite a lot of our discussion. And so I think sitting behind the idea of the fact that we thought we were funny and we wanted to be able to do this was also quite a serious focus about wanting to bring different voices. And bringing our voices as 6 middle-aged women is something, but the other part of it was we wanted to find the voices that you don't hear from and bring those. So that's a really important part of our podcast.
Okay, well, like any podcast, it's very good to have what I call an editorial mission and get really clear on why are you doing this? Why are we going to come back each week and do it? Why are people going to come back each week and listen? I mean, so you've kind of nailed that. You're really clear on what this show's going to be about. Can't help but ask a logistical question at this time because 6 people creating one show, that's like, it's hard enough getting one person to start a podcast.
Yeah.
What did you do in that first week?
It certainly does have elements of the group assignment at university that everyone regrets afterwards. But the first week, I guess everybody came with different skills. Emma and Alicia both come from a radio and a broadcasting background.
Oh, that helps.
So that helps. Lucy comes from a communications background and has been probably one of Melbourne's most famous soapboxes in terms of dialing into radio stations with opinions on things. So really, this was just a natural vehicle for Lucy from Box Hill.
So she was a serial talkback radio. See, I love that.
Yeah, completely.
I think any business owner listening could use that as a strategy to help them articulate them. Call into talkback radio.
100%. And then, I mean, Kate is a legal academic who I guess has really found her spot she has brought in some amazing guests to our show where, the show is fun and lighthearted, but we also talk serious things. And so when we were talking about, one of our frustrations is, as females who love football, you often get asked, "Oh, is it because the players are hot?" Or, "Oh, do you actually watch the game?" And there's this huge disrespect around your love of the actual game. And so Kate reached out to a fellow academic who, Kim Toffeletti, in one of our early episodes, who is an expert in female fandom. So we talked about, well, why do women love football, and why is it that AFL attracts more female fans than other football codes around Australia? And so there's a serious side as well to, and so Kate's connections have been amazing. So we've had people come in and talk to us, like Sean Gorman, talk about the original Indigenous beginnings of where football came from, and what's going on at the moment with new competitions up in the Northern Territory, things like that.
You did your first show. You gone, this is good. Put it up there, put it on the website, submitted it to iTunes. I want to go through it in a way that other business owners go, I probably could do that. And you've enjoyed it. Did you get any feedback, or was it all pretty quiet at this point?
Well, we thought that our families and friends were listening. So that was
it was
there
funny.
was a funny tipping point when we, a few weeks in, started to realise that people that we don't know are listening, which is funny. But I think, going back to your original question about the logistics of getting 6 people to do something, I think that when something's a passion project, you actually find the space. So we're 6 women who have jobs, families, could not find time to necessarily have a coffee with each other, but we have somehow for 2 years carved out a space once a week to do this. And the workload has kind of increased as we've done more and got broader. And I think the answer to that is it's got to be something that you love. Like, it comes from passion.
Totally.
And if it's something that's creative, it's something you truly believe in, then you somehow find the time.
Yeah. It's like, for me, marketing a small business is, while it's a necessity, like it's a must do, you want to find marketing that you enjoy doing. So for your dental business, it's training. You obviously like that part of the business, and it's fun, and you've got to find that. So
exactly.
Okay, so
the logistics from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah.
When you talk in business about every time you see a customer, ask them for a referral for another customer. Every time we talk to guests, they recommend other people, and they say, who you should talk to about this, you should talk to about this. And because we were coming to it with, I guess, no experience in that space, we weren't shy about just ringing people up. And so, within the first sort of 3-4 weeks, we were talking to Sam Pang about his legendary status as Australia's 4th best Chinese footballer of all time, or whatever he calls himself.
So did you immediately have the idea that this was going to be an interview-based show? Because already 6 people.
We did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why?
Because we thought, I guess we probably did that thing that women do, where we thought, well, no one's going to tune in just to listen to us, so we should actually.
Men do that too.
Well, yeah. So we from the start, from that initial dinner, we decided that there'd be an interview.
Okay.
And the idea of a format was really useful, from the very start, to say there's a framework. And so we acknowledge that 6 is a huge number, and you should see what happens. Every time we walk into a space, they go, "What, there's 6 of you?" It's just...
So logistically, what does that look like?
Well, now we're at the ABC.
Well,
we
not
have
now.
6
No,
microphones,
like
but
6
just the
voices.
start.
So from the start, if you listen to our very first podcast,
You're passing a microphone around.
well, we're basically all sitting around a tiny little table, sitting on the floor, and all leaning in when we take our turn to talk.
and talking over each other. There's a lot of crosstalk, but we acknowledge that, and we call that opening section the melee. It's an all-in. It's that moment where everything's out of control and everybody's piling on. And so
can't wait to get their voice across.
Yeah.
exactly.
And like anything, you learn the skills. We've kind of made the decision to, we'll just learn how to do this as we go. So we've had massive learnings over 2 seasons.
No doubt.
Where we now have processes to try and not talk over the top of each other, and we've tried to get better at that and identifying each other. It's a funny thing where you've got 3 sisters who kind of sound like each other as well. So in terms of people being able to connect with us individually and understand who's speaking, that can be a bit tricky. So we've started to be more mindful of saying, "Good point, Felicity," that kind of stuff. But it's all about learning as you go.
You got some traction a lot quicker than many other podcasters have. What happened?
Well, it was a national furor, I think they named it. It was actually Lucy who was, before a podcast one week, had noticed a very small article in one online paper that just referenced the fact that Eddie Maguire had made a joke about drowning Caroline Wilson at the MND Big
So
Freeze.
for overseas listeners, we've got one of football's big commentators, and Eddie Maguire, Caroline Wilson, one of football's big journalists.
That's
and
right.
he made a very chauvinistic, it wasn't even
Well,
chauvinistic.
he did. He made a kind of a violent threat against her,
Yeah.
and it was also done in a way where the audio of it happening sounded like a case of aggressive bullying by a group of men who.
So you've picked up on it, Lucy, in a little comment in an online thing.
Yeah.
You've talked about it on your show.
Yeah. Well, we did. Well, Lucy did some research first because we were thinking, if this happened, how could that have
no
gone?
one's heard about it?
Yeah. How could it have gone out live on a public radio station and not one person complained about it, not one person picked that up? And so there was a bit of due diligence to go, did this actually occur? And there was another podcaster who we were talking to at the time who actually found the audio and we went, well, this actually happened. And so, so
it was kind of a group of outliers in terms of the media, but it happened at a time when we were actually doing an episode on the first lot of licences that were being handed out for the AFLW. So we were really excited about doing a very positive football story, and I'd gone to the girls and said, I really don't want to talk about this because it's quite negative, but I think we have to. And by the Friday night, Josh Pinn from the Footy Gospel, which is another great footy podcast, had found the audio, and then Erin Riley, who's a independent journalist in Sydney, had written a blog post about it, and then it just went crazy in terms of media.
Okay, so how many weeks into your show is this, just out of interest?
I think it was at week 14.
Okay, so we're sort of halfway through the season.
Yeah.
You mentioned it on the Outer Sanctum.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to understand who picked that up in order for it to go viral around in Australian media.
Well, we had a bit of a listener base by then. So we had, and also Erin Riley, who picked up what we'd talked about and wrote a blog about. Her blog got picked up.
And this is all of a sudden the Outer Sanctum. That's 14 weeks for a podcast.
Yeah.
People say to me, how long should I wait? And I don't really know the answer to that, but certainly for me, in my second year, things started to happen. Like 14 weeks, I still was talking to no one.
14 weeks, I can't even describe what that period was like, where suddenly, we all had jobs, we had families, we had this podcast, and then we had a national furor. We had this incident where we were all being asked at various times to, could someone be on this radio station at this hour in this state? Could someone write this for this? Can someone appear on TV?
Did you freak out, or did you feel in control?
Actually, I think I had a moment where there was a story about Holden were looking at pulling they were questioning whether they'd continue to sponsor Collingwood, and I didn't sleep that night.
Lucy.
I really didn't, because I thought, we come at this because we love football, and we want it to be an
You
inclusive
didn't come at it
space.
to stir the pot.
Absolutely not. But by the same token, it's important that you do call things out, and we didn't like what we heard in that commentary box that day. So that was a real moment.
For me, it was when
Did Eddie ever get in contact with you?
Never.
Okay.
No.
We did get called out by Sam. Well, Sam Newman made a comment on the footy show about the second-tier media, which he called perfumed excrement.
Wow.
And there was also a post, there was a article by Andrew Bolt calling, mummy bloggers who...
Yeah, right.
Pack of...
Okay. Wow, that's heavy. So, big storm. Great for Outer Sanctum. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, yes and no. I mean...
What's the no?
Well, the no is, I guess, that perception from probably people who never listened and probably still haven't listened, that we're a group of people who would sit around nitpicking commentary, and that's not what the show's about. This was part of it, and this happened. And but the positive obviously was we were on the radar, and at the time the next thing that happened for us was we were contacted by the Eon Sports radio network, who they were just trying to rebuild, and I think they've left the market again, but they were just getting their radio station up and running and looking for interesting content.
Right.
And so they contacted us and said, would you like to come and podcast out of our studios, which gave us,
Yep.
I guess, our first step into something a little bit more professional than a Zoom recorder. And also, we all got a bit of exposure in terms of writing articles and doing appearances.
Fantastic
and
exposure.
things.
And it also meant that when we contacted people to try and find guests, they knew who we were.
Yeah, oh, you're those
So
people.
even though we hadn't struggled in 14 weeks to find a guest, and I still don't know that we would have, because it's one of those things that's evolved via networking. I think all of a sudden we had people contacting to say,
Can you just
could we
touch
come
on
the show?
getting guests? Because again, people
Yeah.
listening going, oh, no one will want to be interviewed by me. And by the way, interviewing is not the only format for a podcast, but it's a pretty popular one.
Yeah.
Early on, you mentioned Sam Pang, overseas listeners. Sam Pang, comedian, media personality. I would have thought hard to get. But what, someone's just reached out? And...
Well, I think we've got such 6 people who've all had various careers. We've all got big networks. So I
Someone
think
knows
Felicity's touched on the fact that Kate is a legal academic, so she's got an enormous network.
Yep.
Emma and Alicia have both been in the broadcasting space. Nicole's a writer.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of contacts, and we're all fairly natural networkers.
Mm-hmm.
So we spend a lot of time going to... Well, we go to lots of community events and we go to the football and we talk to
Yep.
people because we love it.
Yep.
But then you naturally just find interesting people that you want to talk to and you
Yeah.
think your listeners will like.
There's also people want to tell their story as well. So there's a lot of
Oh, no
people
doubt.
that none of us had any exposure to. And probably 3 or 4 weeks in, we just contacted Susan Alberti, for example, and who sort of is one of the people who is really credited with getting the Women's League up and running. And so she was happy to see us. By the end of the season, we were talking with Natasha Stott-Despoja, and we were in at Government House interviewing
Isn't it
Linda
amazing?
Dessau.
Linda Dessau, the Governor of Victoria. Surreal moments of driving up the driveway to Government House to talk football with the Governor.
Okay, so you've got yourselves on the map. You've made a name for yourself. People approaching you for interviews now for the Outer Sanctum. Your first partnership was with The Age. Is that The Age newspaper?
In terms of a professional partnership, yes.
And how'd that come about?
so-
What did it do for you?
Well, The Age contacted us with the Women's League occurring. There was a 10-week season in the lead up to and the week after, and the 8 rounds of football that was going to be the inaugural Women's League. And by that stage, we'd done a lot of work interviewing people who were getting ready to play, people who were putting the game together. And so they asked if we would cover the Women's League for them from not a commentary perspective, but more of an overall weekly social perspective. And so we took a 10-week contract with The Age, and that was a great experience. We, for the first time in our life, had media passes. That was exciting.
Love it.
And we were able to interview good people, and actually, we didn't really use The Age resources that was open to us if we wanted to
But you're
use
recording, just to be clear, you're recording your podcast for The Age, is that right?
for The Age. So it went out. Yeah, it went out via The Age digital and on their platforms, but also at that stage it was still via iTunes at that stage as well.
And I
we
think
would-
the learning, sorry, Lucy, I was going to say the learning there for anyone wanting to do a podcast, and we've talked a lot about partnerships on this show, whereas you find someone, a business or an organisation or an association, a newspaper, who's willing to give you that leverage, where all of a sudden your audience numbers,
Yeah.
I mean, this show goes on Virgin Airlines, and I saw the increase on audience numbers immediately that happened. So it's a great tip is to go and find that partner who has the same audience as you and get on there.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we did at The Age was had our first little foray into making videos. So we would do a little video at the end of each podcast that we'd recorded just to do a little bit of this is what's coming up. And so that was, again, new skills, and like most things that we do, learnt on the fly. And that's proven to be quite a useful strategy.
And terrifying, the first time you see their Age Facebook page running a live video of you all, or the, their Twitter feed, or, you could click on the links on the newspaper and that would occur. And yeah, we all had that. Oh, we signed up for the audio environment, not the visual environment, but I think we've all got past that now. So
We have.
yeah.
So then the age is going along well. That was a 10-week stint. And then the ABC radio, did that come along shortly thereafter?
It was sort of in the, it was a bit of a negotiation. So it was in the background. We knew that we wanted to, obviously we were going to cover what we now call the AFLM. We like to distinguish between the AFLW and the AFLM.
Men's and women's, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And, making that decision of, do we go down the path of doing it ourselves and finding a big, a corporate sponsor at that point, because we had, good reasons for doing that, or do we take a more, I guess, professional and more polished path with the ABC? And so we signed a contract with the ABC for the men's season, and that's been extraordinary. It's been
Why?
For a start, it's brought a whole team of people around us where we were 6 people who, at the end of recording the podcast, would then go home and somebody would get on, the Audacity on their editing suite, and somebody would try and upload it to SoundCloud, and somebody else would be trying to, we have a team of people who do that for us. So it's lovely. We have that studio space to have people come in when we do interviews.
No longer sitting on the floor around a Zoom microphone.
And, we still like to do our car interviews. We've always maintained that a car is a really good studio. And
I totally agree with that.
A lot of people still, when they're, coming on the pod say, oh, we can do it in the car. But that's been nice.
Yeah.
Out of interest, because I've done this show in the car a number of times. Not interviews, but just my pieces to Mike. The back seat of my car is acoustically a beautiful.
We recorded a whole podcast with 6 of us in the car with trams going down Glenfrey Road.
Nice.
And that
ambient noise.
People liked it.
Well, we laughed a lot because we'd had a fairly large dinner first, so it was one of our sillier episodes. But it was it did make a nice warm sound. But yeah, so we now have a producer. We have someone who does the editing for us. We can, if there's a guest now that we would like, we don't have to go and chase them ourselves. We can,
You just roll up and sit down and turn the microphones on.
Well, I mean, it's a bit more than that.
But
it's very.
You could.
No. But we also have at the other end of it, the stories that we're bringing now have an interest. So then someone within the ABC will often write that up as an article, and then it goes out on another media platform. And so
Massive leverage.
Yeah. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had that occur a couple of times where articles.
The last 2 weeks, our interviews have ended up in the newspaper.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's...
Did you notice a huge spike in numbers immediately that sort of partnership started with the ABC?
It got a bit more complicated because once you go to the ABC, it comes out via ABC platforms. So when we started, we would sit there and watch the iTunes numbers. They're irrelevant now. That's not how we can judge. So we don't...
What we do notice...
Just so I understand that, Felicity, you're saying the iTunes numbers are irrelevant because now your main distribution platform is... ABC have an app, right, called Listen?
They do.
So that's your major source of audience?
There's a combination because that happens. Then often our show gets replayed on Grandstand Radio over the weekend, and so we have goes out live as well, in terms of it's heard on radio. And so there's you can't count the way we used to be able to count.
There's so many diverse ways that
Correct.
it goes out now.
Yeah.
So, we still have our website with the episodes up on SoundCloud. So,
I just got an email today to say this show's now listed on Spotify. So all of a sudden you're just there's all these different sources that...
There's actually, I don't know that there's ever a way of knowing, really.
As long as people are listening, and there's more people listening than last week, I'm kind of happy with that.
And we judge a lot of our reach via our interactions. So because we're across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and email, we get a lot of interaction from people via those different media forms, and that's often a good judge for us about what people have thought of an episode or how much an interview has resonated.
Now, I'm guessing the Outer Sanctum for you guys, which started as a hobby, as a good idea, and you've proved that, you would love to make it a business. Am I putting words into your mouth, or is that fair to say?
Well, it is a business at the moment.
Yes, it is. A business that would sustain 6 women in the...
For not very long.
For not very long. So, but you would that would be a good thing, right? You would love it to...
Yeah, and of course there's pros and cons of being with a broadcaster where you can't have a sponsor.
No.
You
So
know, and
ABC are giving you a little bit of coin to do what you do.
Yeah, so you make a judgment call on whether you want to go for a sponsor or whether you want to go with a broadcaster where you can't have a sponsor. Outside of that, we have opportunities that we, at the moment we have a whole range of sort of social media videos and little TV shows that we've been making, which, they've accounted for a huge spike in,
like a 225% increase in listeners.
Numbers girl.
Yeah, from when the first video launched.
But that's not revenue.
No, but that could be. We could explore those things.
Okay, so right now, what I'm finding interesting is that you've got this podcast idea. I'm guessing it hasn't impacted individually on each of your individual businesses that much.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know because we're all in such different
fields.
Yep. So I think it's quite different, the impact that it would have. Like it's unlikely to have an impact on a dental business, whereas for say people who are doing creative stuff in writing books and things, then it can possibly have more of an impact. So I think it's so funny. Like we've been doing it for 2 seasons, but it still feels like early days.
Yeah, well, I've been doing this for 8 years. It still feels like early days.
Yeah.
The fun thing about it. Things change. You get more confident in one area and want to hone your skills in another, and hopefully that never kind of diminishes. That's what I love about doing this.
I think all of us love it so much that whilst it is a small business for us at the moment, Lucy takes the skills that she has in our other business doing accounts and manages the accounts for the Outer Sanctum. Emma she has a lot of roles in sort of media doing projects. Well, she takes a lot of that to this. So we all bring the skills, and
so
we would probably still do it even if it made nothing.
Nice.
Because we absolutely believe in what we're doing.
Do you have an idea of how you will monetise it going forward? Like, is it you can't be with ABC forever? I know you probably can't. You can't reveal too much, but to actually really monetise it.
I think what I think the challenge is with a weekly podcast when you've also got other jobs and everything else. It's actually I think the biggest challenge for us is carving out that time to do some of that forward planning.
Yeah.
And
you're going week to week still?
We're still going week to week.
I get it.
Yeah. And I think that is something, we're getting to the point of thinking about that now. But the reality is you're living on a treadmill. And so you've got to love the treadmill. Yeah. But you're just running the whole time so you don't go flying off the back.
Yeah,
I know that.
You're 100% right. There is no way of foreseeing or planning what this was or what this is. And now we're nearly 2 years in, and it's probably the time to sit down and say, okay, where are we going and that. But literally getting 6 people together to record is a feat. And every time we've tried to organise something outside of that, for a start, it's unwieldy because there's 2 years worth of stuff to talk about and to work out. And I think what we actually need is a professional facilitator to come in and run the meeting for us and keep it on track.
We just talk.
You mean the meeting as in the recording of an episode?
No, I mean outside of that. The 6 of us want to plan, okay, where are we going to be in 12 months and how do we want to do it? There is a challenge when there's 6 people and when a couple of people are coming from a creative background where they're used to lots of small projects that you come in and out of over time. There's people who have other jobs who are, obviously giving up salary in their other jobs to divert time to this there's so many, we don't all have the same motivation and we don't have the same implications of what it means to spend the time on this. And so
one of the I had a co-host for the first 80 episodes of this show. I had a co-host and we had a really honest relationship where we'd tell each other what we thought we did right, what we did wrong, what we could do better. We'd pull each other up, and as a result it was quite a successful partnership. Do you have that amongst the 6 of you where you can look each other in the eye and go, Luce, I think you might have just stepped over the mark there, and can you not do that next week?
I think we do, and I think we're probably all our own harshest critics, and I think there's probably a difference. I don't want to come back to gender, but there is a difference in the way that women work and receive feedback, and so I think the way that we do it is we'll kind of say, oh, really, I'm not sure about that. And then we'll all talk it through that way. So we probably go more the indirect route than the direct route, but that works for us.
Yeah.
But I think, generally we're on a trajectory of improvement.
Where would you like it to be in 12 months' time?
Oh, well, I mean, it would be amazing if this was something that we could all work on full time. The reality is with 6 people, that would be
It
a
feels
huge
like
thing.
it's like you're going the right way. I get the ABC thing gives you so much leverage and openings into other areas of the media that it kind of makes sense that you forego income. But what you need to do, and it looks like you are doing it, you've got a bit of merch, which I don't imagine you're making a whole lot of dough from merch, but you're doing some live events.
We do.
See, I see that as massive for you guys.
Yeah, our events have been extraordinary,
No
actually,
doubt.
because I'll give you an example. Our last event, we hosted what we call a kick and coffee, where we're not the only people who are of our age and gender who never got taught how to bounce a football or kick a football. And so we had the idea last year and said, who else would like to learn that? And last year, 80 people who looked just like us turned up to the Arden Street Oval and got taught, and it was amazing. This year we had over 100 register pretty quickly. It sold out within the day or 2 days or something.
That's the future for the Outer Sanctum.
Yeah.
I feel like it's where people, because we live also in a very virtual world, so people do want to connect. I mean,
Well, this is the thing. I think there's an authenticity about what we do in terms of trying to bring voices from the outer. And so the logical step is that you actually all want to catch up and meet in real life.
Yep.
And so that's a lovely, lovely part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right that that's a logical next step.
Brilliant.
It is extraordinary. We have these moments all the time, but just 2 weeks ago or something, was it you that the lady came up to in tears?
It was Emma.
Oh, Emma.
Yeah.
And she came up and at the football and just said, I'm a stay-at-home mum and I feel like you're all my friends.
Oh, beautiful.
You're the voices that I hear during the week. And I guess because we are now at the ABC, we have infiltrated quite a bit into other programs. So over the course of a week, you'll often hear, maybe like last week, Lucy did the Thursday night Legends Bar, which is a 1 hour sports program. Alicia's often on the Coulda Beans on a Saturday morning. Nicole often does a football segment with Raph Epstein on a Friday.
How fantastic.
Emma does the Kelly Underwood show on a Sunday. So yeah, it has opened up a lot of opportunities. Totally. And the ABC, like a lot of organisations, they've really realised that more female voices are needed in this space. And so, the fact that we've got 6 of us, we're a good pool to choose from when people say, hang on, we would like to add a female voice to this discussion of sport, it's not necessarily football, but just having extra female voices it's worked, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Good on you guys. Well done for the Outer Sanctum. How do people find it?
Okay, so you can find us on... This will challenge me. You might need to edit
Well, it's not
this bit.
you're everywhere.
No,
right?
well, so we're on the ABC Listen app, which
the
is
best place.
fantastic. We have a website, the Outer Sanctum Podcast. We're on Facebook at the Outer Sanctum Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well.
You're everywhere, man.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, there you go, team. Felicity and Lucy Race, 2 of the 6 women that make up the Outer Sanctum podcast. And a big thank you, by the way, to past guest Scott Kilmartin of Grace, the vintage ice cream truck fame, for suggesting I do this interview. Thanks, Scott. Coming up, I share my top 3 attention grabbers from that fireside chat with Felicity and Lucy. Plus, I'll take you behind the scenes of how I promote this show. The Small Business Big Marketing Show is made possible thanks to 52 Ways, or what Dale Beaumont describes as the best one-day business workshop ever. Quite a claim, Dale, but one that may not be far from the truth, because I have attended one and it was incredible. I'll give you 3 reasons why you should go. Number 1, you'll network with other like-minded business owners. And remember, your network equals your net worth. Second reason, Dale shares 52 ways to grow your business. Now, unless you are completely incompetent, which I know you're not because you listen to this show, you will walk away with at least one big idea that once implemented will have a significant positive impact on your bottom line. And my third reason to attend is it's free. Now, I can hear you say, come on, Timbo, free comes with catches. Well, often free does, but not this time. This is a content-jammed 8 hours where you're under no obligation to buy those extra set of steak knives. There's seats available for November dates, plus 2018 dates are now available for both Australia and New Zealand. And you can grab your free tickets for you and some colleagues over at 52, that's 52ways.biz. Now, I get how busy you are. So busy that you haven't written a blog post or added new content to your website in how long? A month? 10 months? Maybe never. Well, you're not alone. In fact, you're in the majority of small business owners who would rather set fire to their own legs than sit down and write a 500-word blog post, even though they know it'd be good for business. But guess what? We speak up to 3 times as fast as we type. And thanks to Dragon's speech recognition software, you could be smashing out content in literally a third of the time. Dragon converts whatever you say into words on your screen. It's ridiculously accurate right from the get-go, and it learns what you sound like, getting better each time you use it. I actually used it to write this ad. In fact, I spoke this ad. Dragon works on PCs and Macs, and right now you can access an exclusive 35% listener discount over at getdragon.com.au. So get Dragon now and write as fast as you think. Righto, my top 3 attention grabbers from my chat with the Outer Sanctum girls, thanks to Dragon's speech recognition software and 52 Ways. Attention grabber number 1. Don't be afraid to look to podcasting as a whole new business for yourself. I did, and it continues to be an amazing ride. If you want to know how I've monetised it, then go back and take a listen to episode 351 over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Attention grabber number 2. Nothing's impossible. If you had told me there's a group of 6 people successfully producing a weekly radio program, I would have said that's way too many. It couldn't work. Well, clearly it can, and the Outer Sanctum is proof of that. And attention grabber number 3, partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. Now, I know, I've rattled on about this a lot, but the power of a strategic partnership in growing any business cannot be understated. If you want to know how to do it, go back and take a listen to episode 369, where myself and Dale Beaumont take you through 7 steps to do exactly that, to develop a profitable strategic partnership. That's what grabbed my attention. Would love to know what grabbed yours. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/383 and let me know.
What have you got to lose?
It's time for one simple yet effective marketing idea that you can implement now. One that won't cost a fortune and that might just generate you more awareness, more inquiry, and ultimately more sales. Ka-ching! I call today's idea my humanising business hack. Have you ever heard the saying, people buy from people? Never a truer word spoken, methinks. Think about your own shopping habits. Do you find yourself gravitating towards that happy shop attendant or that website that has a human face to it? You know, I'm shocked at just how many businesses, especially service-based businesses, avoid the human connection. Walking into a department store these days, it's not easy getting assistance. Visit a business website and it's not uncommon for there to be no mention of the people who work there, much less a photo or a welcome video. Why is that? When creating an emotional connection between you and your prospect can increase the chance of a sale by multiples. So, here's my 3 steps to my humanising business hack. Step 1, audit all the places in your business where you can add a human touch. Your website, social media channels, in-store, your email signature, the list goes on. Step 2. For each of these places, brainstorm clever, shareable ways to be more human. To do this, consider asking a killer question like, what would Walt Disney do in this situation? It'll force you to look at the problem from a different angle. Step 3, implement your ideas. Don't question them, don't judge them, just implement them. And here's the pro tip. This is not a one-off exercise. Make it a key part of your ongoing marketing strategy to attract and retain more customers. Doing so will not only humanise your business, but set you apart from your non-human competition. That's my 3 steps to my humanising business hack. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/383, where you'll find a link to this post, a couple of examples of businesses showing their human side, plus some additional resources to bring this idea to life, including an article on how to make your business more human on social media, and a related article detailing 10 ways to convert more customers using psychology. You can also grab a personalised copy of my popular marketing book, The Boomerang Effect. So, what have you got to lose? Now, you may well remember a few weeks ago, I did an episode with SEO, that search engine optimization guru, Rand Fishkin, where we spent the whole hour talking about how to optimize your podcast show notes so you rank on page 1 of Google. Now, what we talked about was all the on-page search engine optimization tricks you can do, and the learnings applied not only to podcast show notes, but to blog posts and really any page of your website. And we focused on on-page SEO. Now, Rand had to go after an hour, which was fair enough. We could have probably spoken for 4 hours. But what I want to do now, what I did promise to do, was share some of the off-page SEO hacks that I use in order to increase the discoverability of the Small Business Big Marketing Show. Now, discoverability, just so you understand, it's a big word, isn't it? But just helping more people find this show. And it's one of the great challenges of any podcast is to make your show more discoverable. So, in no particular order, here are the things that I do to draw in more listeners. First and foremost, well, sort of not really first and foremost, I said no particular order, didn't I? But let's start with partnerships, okay? I have developed some really good partnerships with key players that give me massive leverage for getting my show in front of more, in my case, small business owners. So I have partnerships with Virgin Airlines. This show appears domestically and internationally on all Virgin Airlines ex-Australia. I have a partnership with the Small Business Mentoring Service, who publish every single episode of this show on their website. In fact, they are so trustworthy, they allow my marketing assistant Joel to go into their WordPress and post it there for them. This show also appears on the Small Business Association of Australia's website. It appears, of course, on iTunes, which is the biggest directory of podcasts in the world. I just got an email this week from Spotify, who are hand curating podcasts at the moment. Oh, can you believe it? Hand curating. There are humans listening to podcasts and choosing which ones to list. This show has just been listed on Spotify. That's a great partnership. And so all these partnerships amplify my audience, get me in front of more. And by the way, if you know anyone who you think maybe fronts an association or a franchise group or a large group of small business owners, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to make contact with them and see whether I can partner up with them. Email me, tim@timreid.com.au. Okay, another way I get listeners to find this show is through, of course, social media. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. I know, just for the Google employees, really. Pinterest. I don't yet use Instagram. I should, I know. I just haven't got around to it. Facebook and LinkedIn are the most effective. With Facebook, I do both organic and boosted posts. I have artwork created, bespoke artwork created for every single social media channel, okay, so that it fits beautifully, that the copy or the image isn't cut off. So I go to that trouble. And more often than not, I change the message between channels. So more of a business message on LinkedIn, more of a fun message on Facebook. But the day an episode comes out, I put it across all those social media channels. Another way I get an audience, and I'm just starting to test this, so I don't have anything to report back on, but I'm using YouTube, and I'm using a bit of software called repurpose.io. I haven't got complete confidence in it yet, so don't go and use it on my recommendation. But what it does do is it takes my audio file and converts it to a YouTube video. Okay, so now every episode is becoming made available on YouTube. I don't expect big numbers from that, but my view is it's a numbers game. So, a few here, a lot there, a few more over there leads to a big audience. So using YouTube, just started to use YouTube. I post to groups, so small business groups on LinkedIn or Facebook or forums out there. I post episodes to groups. If someone's asking a question, for example, about what would it be? About how to use Facebook Live, and I've got an episode on that, then I will post a link to that episode in response to that question. I have an email list, and I encourage you to build an email list. I don't email that list every single week with a new episode. I probably should, but probably twice a month I'm emailing my list, which and letting them know about what's happening on the show. I always ask my guest to share the episode. Some do, some don't. Some don't like sharing interviews with themselves. Others are more than happy to. I send individual episodes to individuals who I know would benefit from listening to it, or who I know would like to share it because it's about a topic they like. So that one-on-one interaction can be just as powerful as, and sometimes more powerful than, say, posting to Facebook or Twitter. I hear this is a bit of a pro tip. This one, I revisit my archive often. Right? So I've got 300, as of right now, I've got 383 episodes sitting over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Now, they can either sit there and gather dust, or I can actively go back into my website on a daily basis and retweet or repost an old episode. And I do that. I make a habit of doing that, and even scheduling some posts for the future. Otherwise, they just get buried and forgotten. So, and my one that I'm working on now, the last tip that I'll give to help you get more listeners or readers to your podcast or your blog, is looking to do joint promotions for me with other podcasters. Now, radio stations and TV networks have been doing this forever and a day. They promote each other's shows. And I think us podcasters aren't good at that. There are some podcasting networks out there that do it well. They promote each other's shows. But I want to start promoting other podcasts, and I'd like other podcasters to start promoting my show. And that way we can build the medium together. So that's how I make my podcast more deliverable. The Small Business Big Marketing Show has benefited hugely from those off-page search engine optimization tips. Put them together with the on-page search engine optimization tips that I went through with Rand Fishkin a few episodes ago, and you've got a pretty good audience building strategy. You can find the link to that interview with Rand over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/383. Whew. Told you it'd be a big show. Was. Well, it certainly feels that way. It almost wraps up another episode of the Small Business Big Marketing Show, but don't worry. There is plenty of marketing gold coming your way in the weeks ahead, including, wait for it, a chat with a barbecue chicken shop owner whose videos of him dancing on Facebook have got customers lining up around the block. That should be a ripper. Hey, have you listened to the chat I had with Canberra Airport owner Stephen Byron? Not only is it amazing that he and his dad own and built Australia's most awarded airport, they also went to great lengths to ensure it is ridiculously user-friendly.
The most important thing for a traveller is to make sure they get their flight and they don't miss it, and for the planes to be on time and it to be fast, friendly and easy. So that really culminated in the design that involved a roadway that comes up to the front of the terminal where you can see the terminal. So there's no lack of clarity when you're driving to the airport. And then there's no pedestrian crossings that slow you down because, even if you're not running late, sooner or later those pedestrian crossings end up putting you in a running late position and the stress starts. So we got rid of that, and our car parks are on the side, and you can enter the car parks independently of the cars that are being dropped off to drop people off with taxis and the like. You can then come into the terminal, and we had a big central atrium, and we knew that security was going to be the big thing. It was obviously post September 11 from New York. So security was the next key piece to remove the stress and remove the queues. So as well as putting in quite a number of lanes and a nice open area atrium to house it in, we said that our staff, who are security contractors first and foremost, they could also be helpful and friendly.
Helpful and friendly staff. What a concept. Stephen goes on to explain other ways they made Canberra Airport user-friendly. And I've got to tell you, the learnings and insights that he shares apply to every single business on this planet Earth. You'll find that full interview with Stephen plus hundreds more over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, or you can subscribe free on your favourite podcast catcher. Hey, I'd love to hear from you. Hit the contact button over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com where you can email me, connect with me on social media and grab a signed copy of my book, The Boomerang Effect. Be sure to grab your free seat at Dale Beaumont's 52 Ways live event with new Australian and New Zealand dates released for 2018. You've got no excuses. Plus, there are still some dates left for Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Newcastle for November 2017. One thing all successful business owners have in common is they never stop learning, and nor should you. Head over to 52ways.biz and grab a seat for you and a colleague after this show. Check out Dragon's speech recognition software if you want to save a massive amount of time and frustration replying to those 200 backed up emails, or however many hundreds of emails you've got backed up. It'll help you writing reports or creating that next killer blog post. It is productivity on steroids. Visit getdragon.com.au for a 35% off listener discount. If you love the Small Business Big Marketing Show, then let another business owner know by grabbing their phone, opening up the podcast app, searching for the Small Business Big Marketing Show, hitting subscribe, giving them back their phone, running away. I'd love it if you did that. Until next week, I'm Timbo Reid. Thanks for tuning in. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.